What's up, everyone? Got a quick comic review video up for you right now. This is Vision and the Scarlet Witch. I'm reviewing this whole series, issues 1 through 4. This is a 4-issue limited series that Marvel put out in 1982, written by comics legend Bill Mantlo, who I know him for making Rocket Raccoon and writing some great old Daredevil comics and the ROM Space Knight comics that Marvel published. And this series is illustrated by legendary Rick Leonardi, who I know for going on to illustrate Spider-Man 2099 by Peter David in the 90s. And I mainly got this for this final issue, issue 4. I've been on the hunt for. I'm always looking for comics with my boy Quicksilver in it and any issues that are essential to his history. And this is the issue, spoiler alert, the issue that Magneto is revealed to be the father of Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. So I was on the hunt for it, and when I found it at a comic book store, they had this whole series. So I was, yeah, I'm just going to get this whole thing, because the WandaVision show was happening, and it was not giving me my superhero comic book fix that I've been wanting. So this definitely did. I like this series a lot more than that WandaVision show. This was good stuff. Don't get me wrong, even though I got it just out of pretty much Quicksilver fandom, this is great for fans of Vision and or the Scarlet Witch. So I can't wait to get to issue 4. I'm going to review these in order, but I'm going to spend the most time talking about issue 4. But here we go with issue 1. The Night of the Living Druid. This opens up, and right off the bat, it reminds me of that episode of WandaVision that takes place during Halloween. And really good shot. I got this kid dressed up as Spider-Man over here. And it's very similar, actually. I was very surprised how much that TV show borrowed from this series, because the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, they just got married, they're husband and wife, and they're very much in love, and they just bought a place here in this little town. They want to settle down, and they're ex-Avengers now. They just want to live their lives. And so here we go. I just like this part right here, where Vision doesn't know what these trick-or-treaters are, and so Scarlet Witch explains to him he doesn't have any treats to give them. Look at the surprised faces on those kids. And so then he says, "But it also appears that I have no treats. Thus I fear that my offering shall have to be trick." And so he turns his hand intangible and sticks his hand through their bag and just kind of amazes them. And I think that was kind of cool. And he has this line of dialogue right here. "I believe someone once said that even an android can laugh." And that's a callback to an old Avengers issue, which I have. It's all beat up. I have an old copy of it. One of my first comics, actually, of the issue where Vision joins the Avengers. And by the end of the comic, even an android could cry, basically was the issue. And really good. I don't know why he looks sad right there, and he's saying he should laugh, but it's supposed to make you really feel for him. And they walk away and go into their house that they just bought. I like this bit right here that the Scarlet Witch and Vision are pretty much just talking about. They just quit the Avengers and bought this place. And she says, "We used our accrued Avengers salary to purchase this house." And that really made me laugh, because it's kind of one of those issues that don't get talked about, of how superheroes make their money. So they use their money of being superheroes to buy the house, which is cool. Jarvis is here really randomly to help them unpack, and he delivers to them a book that Captain America wanted him to give the Scarlet Witch. For some reason, Captain America found it. He says, "Captain America asked to give you this book. He procured it on a visit to England and thought you might like to have it." So I don't know what Captain America was doing with this book, but it turns out to be a druid tome. And she just kind of sets it down. Vision and the Scarlet Witch. Really great artwork here. You can tell this is at a point early in Rick Leonardi's career where he's definitely learning. He's getting a grasp on how to draw. That's why they gave him a job like this. 4-issue limited series. That was the classic way how you climb the ladder at Marvel. You get a little bit here, get a little bit there, and you continuously get more high-profile gigs and climb the ladder. So some panels don't look right. some panels look really great. You know, like even right here. Love this kind of stuff because this is a series of marriage at its heart, and Vision and Scarlet Witch they're definitely in the honeymoon phase right now. They just got married and they're in love, kissing right here in this panel. The weird part about it is it looks like Vision's hand is kind of going through her neck, which honestly it could. It just wouldn't be very romantic. So I don't know if that was a perspective issue from Rick Leonardi or not. And not realizing that on the table the Druid Tomes pages start turning, and really like this shot right here of the Vision just kind of walking and sulking in his past, and you see these characters that kind of make up his personality in Ultron right there. Really good shot of Scarlet Witch's head, who falling in love with her and helped him discover more and more of his humanity through the emotion of love. And as it continues on, basically it just gets going, and this evil magic comes out of the tome, possesses some trick-or-treaters and turns them into actual monsters of the characters that they're dressed up as. And then they knock on the door and Vision's got to throw down with them. And the really cool shot right here of the ghost that can also turn intangible, and so it kind of turns the table on Vision, so he experiences the pain that he causes others, and you get these 4 different angle shots of his head and him ultimately yelling in pain. And get the villain shot of this. I'm pretty sure this one and doneer villain, he turns out to be Sam Hain, who is the eternal embodiment of All Hallows Eve. So he looks kind of cool here. He looks cool enough to where I'd be curious if he'd appear later to fight Doctor Strange or something. I like these little monster creatures coming down at his feet. And he pretty much just, you know, kind of a lot of weirdness. He just takes Scarlet Witch randomly on a ride through history of him, you know, causing havoc in the shadows. And but then downstairs, the Vision kind of just eye blasts the jack-o'-lantern. It didn't kill the kid. Reverted back to kid form, and then has a little trouble with the goblin. As for the ghost is going to go for Scarlet Witch. So it just turns intangible and goes through Jarvis as he tries to block the door. And but then Jarvis grabs the platter that he's using, and it's like kind of one of those cheesy learn this from Captain America type moments, and he chucks it at the goblin at the simultaneously Vision turning his hand intangible. So then dispatches the goblin with the help of Jarvis's cheesy Captain America platter. And now Vision can turn his attention to saving his wife from the ghost creature, because he knows that she probably can't handle the ghost and the main Sam Hain. I keep blanking on his name because it's kind of forgettable. But then the ghost and the Vision go through the roof and kind of duke it out up in the sky. And then the Scarlet Witch, she kind of beats Sam Hain very easily. She uses a hex bolt or hex power to use. She uses her magic basically to throw the book that she realizes he's been standing on the whole time to appear, and she just pushes it into the fire, pulls a Ash from Evil Dead 1 and just throws in the fire, and that fixed the problem, and sucks him into the fire, and that's the end of that. And so the kids turn out to be all right, and then everything is fine. And then it ends with someone knocking at the door, and it turns out to be Robert Frank, who is the Wizard, and a cliffhanger ending that will lead into issue 2. So, gonna be honest, this was the weakest issue. It was the most random and the most it didn't have the impact that the other issues have. So when I read it, I was like, oh, I hope the rest of the series isn't going to be like this. Otherwise, it's going to really drag on. It was really kind of random. It didn't really set up anything other than Robert Frank showing up at the end. You know, some kind of okay art, but this first issue was definitely the weakest. So get that out of here. On to issue 2. Off the bat, that's already a better cover. I really like the colors. Get that no matter how fast the Wizard runs, he can't escape the past. So there's definitely a Sins of the Father theme with this issue. And did something very interesting where it keeps jumping back and forth like a Quentin Tarantino movie of the present, and then the scenes leading up to what is happening. So I turned the page, I was like, whoa, what did I miss? Vision's hand is all melted and looks gross right there. So seeing that whatever's going down, took out Scarlet Witch, took out the Wizard. He actually looks pretty dead, except it's all from the Vision's point of view, so he doesn't know if he's dead. He doesn't know what's happening. This villain that we saw on the cover has taken out Nucleo, who is a nuclear supervillain that the Avengers have thrown down with a couple times before. And then we're going to jump back into the past. So after being visited by Robert Frank in the end of last issue, Robert Frank, at this time in the comics, he believes he's the father to Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. And except they know that that's not true. They found that out in a few years prior, in the late 70s, in 3 issues of the Avengers called the Yesterday Quest, when Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch travel to Wundagore Mountain and find out where they're really from. I think up to that point, it was believed that the Wizard was their father, except in the Yesterday Quest, it was proven that he is not. And Quicksilver, who is married to Crystal of the Inhumans right there, they just had a kid, their little daughter Luna, speaking to each other on the monitor here, and he's kind of wondering, why haven't you told him yet that he's not actually our father? And she's like, oh my gosh, I didn't have the heart to tell him. He doesn't have anything. His son is Nucleo, and his wife is dead. He was married to another one of those Golden Age Marvel heroes. I can't remember who. And so she just kind of didn't want to make things worse for him. So her judgment, maybe even being the wrong judgment from many points of view, she was just trying to do what's right and take it easy on this old guy, this old hero. So Quicksilver says, okay, we'll do it your way. Even the Vision is kind of wondering, that's a little weird that you're not telling him, that you're just letting him go on believing that he's your father when he's not. But I really like this line of dialogue right here. Once again, really, really good dialogue between Vision and the Scarlet Witch, who are the stars of this series, holding hands. It says right here, the assumption of a responsibility for the welfare of another is a typically human reaction, one quite characteristic of the woman I chose to marry. I am a synthezoid, and yet I understand. As they kiss, she says, I know you do, darling. That's why I love you. Really good stuff, really touching stuff there, that they just have each other's back as husband and wife. And so then also the Robert Frank is trying to win some sort of custody, but not a custody battle, but he knows that with 2 Avengers or ex-Avengers that the courts will rule in favor of Robert Frank having custody over Nucleo, since apparently he's not a threat anymore. They're tending to him to try and cure him of his nuclear powers so that he can go and live a normal life with Robert Frank. And he still believes Wanda is his daughter, so he says that he'll make it up to her. You can see the concern on her face. Jumping back over here, really good shot of him, Vision looking in pain. This is present day again. Then bam, goes back to the past. There's a lot stuffed in this issue. Like, I couldn't help but think that if this comic was published today, they would spend like 2 or 3 issues just telling the really stuffed, jam-packed story that's in this one issue. So good on Bill Mantlo for actually just getting to the point and he definitely tells a good singular story in every one of these issues, and yet it all seems to blend together. So that's good. They visit this facility where they're treating Nucleo. He's pretty much a man-child. He may be an adult, but he has the body of a small child, or the brain of a small child. So they're just trying to cure him. And there we get the very suspicious looking, he's the villain because he's wearing the costume of the villain that we've seen in the flash forwards of the stuff that's happening now. But here's this guy. He's a scientist wearing a radiation suit that's supposedly helping with Nucleo's condition. Blah, blah, blah. Skipping that stuff. And as he's just kind of suiting up for go time, he's just kind of letting Robert Frank ramble. And, okay, let's see. He says it right here. He married Miss America, and they were all superheroes from the All-Winners Squad, if you remember them. Golden Age superheroes, really cool stuff. But then after the war, they had to do like other kind of superhero jobs, and they took a job guarding a nuclear project. And in 1949, there was a reactor meltdown. They survived, but his wife, Miss America, was pregnant at the time, and I believe she died giving childbirth. And then their son turned out to be Nuclo, so that was all because of the nuclear accident. And this guy, this mad scientist, is kind of be like, oh, accident, really? He's coming up being super sinister. And then Nuclo sees that his father's in danger and tries to cry out, but it's too late. This guy just blasts him. He reveals himself to be Isbissa. I had no idea who that was. Total D-list Golden Age villain. I had to look it up. Isbissa, he's an old villain that named himself after all the ages of man. So that's iron, the Iron Age, steel, bronze, ice, stone, and atomic age. So he just put it all together as Isbissa. And he just generally was a pain in the butt for the oh, I'm blanking on the name already. The All-Winners Squad. I believe he fought Submariner and Captain America and that sort of stuff too back in the old days. So he reveals that the nuclear accident was caused by him. He was trying to seek revenge on 2 members of the All-Winners Squad, but now he's going to reap the benefits of that terrible accident that he caused by siphoning Nuclo's power into his radiation suit so he can be supercharged. The action really gets going. Scarlet Witch uses her hex probability powers to rupture the cables siphoning Nucleo's powers and into Isbissa, and then he tries to blast her with a bolt of nuclear energy. And really quickly, really good job drawing motion here. A lot of inking too. Vision goes intangible, goes under her and through the ground, and then immediately turns himself hard as diamond, so he blocks the nuclear blast. And so they start throwing down, and then Whizzer, who Robert Frank's an old guy in this time period. He's an aged superhero, but he's wearing the Whizzer costume under his suit. So right here we get the moment where Vision is trying to fight. Oh, I skipped a really good part. So here, in kind of a good example of Vision having a very human trait of frustration and anger, he reveals to Robert Frank that Wanda is not his daughter, and because he's just concerned, like, daughter, leave, save yourself. And he goes, foolish old man, Wanda is not your daughter. You have endangered her life needlessly. So he's just angry that he feels like his wife has now been roped along with this craziness. And so now through here, we get Robert Frank wanting, he has all these thoughts going right now. He wants to save his son, Nuclo. He feels bad for not actually being Wanda's father. And we also get Vision trying to turn his hand intangible and probably dispatch Isbissa like he thinks it's going to be easy, but really it just melts his hand, and he is in excruciating pain. And Scarlet Witch is like, oh my gosh. Really quickly, the Whizzer, I think he tears through his costume and tries to run at him in super speed, but then it's mentioned by the narration that he'd probably be able to do something like that successfully back in the 1940s, but lately his doctors have warned him never to run again, and so he just totally gets clobbered in one hit, basically, by Isbissa. And so Whizzer's taken out. Vision doesn't know if Scarlet Witch is dead, and so he's in terrible pain, and so the only thing to stop the pain of his arm feeling like it's burning is to just cut it off. And so he laser beams it off himself and amputates his own arm so he can have the strength to fight. And Scarlet Witch is like, oh my gosh, your arm. And they hug really fast, and then Vision starts taking the fight to Isbissa. So him and Nuclo are kind of teaming up. Then Scarlet Witch uses her probability-altering powers to just pretty much burst Isbissa's suit, and all of that nuclear energy just goes back into Nuclo somehow, but for some reason also cures him. So now Nuclo is now cured of the horrible power that he had. and that's what he looks like, just bald guy. Wizard did die. I think that whole debacle gave him a heart attack. And before he died, he told Nuclear that he loves him. And really touching ending right here, really sad. He says, yes, Robert Frank was your father, though he denied responsibility for you for years. He learned it in the end, in time to pass that lesson of love to his only begotten son. So something that Scarlet Witch mentioned to Quicksilver when they were talking on the monitor was that the truth of finding out that Robert Frank was not their father left them as orphans once again. So that's really, it's kind of heartbreaking in the fact that now Nucleo's father just died, and Scarlet Witch got to help, but it's a little bittersweet because, you know, he wasn't her father, but he was his father, and now she's just kind of an orphan again. And so that was a really good issue, very, very intense. You know, I really liked how it was jumping back and forth from the present and the events leading up to it. It was done really well. It was really stuffed. It took me a while to read. It was a lot of dialogue, but like I said, you know, back in 1982, they didn't waste your time like they do now. they got to the point. On to issue 3. It keeps getting better. Really great issue. As you can see, the Grim Reaper and Wonder Man are in it. And so, opens with Wonder Man even on a train. He's thinking, he knows a friend of his is in trouble. He's hurt. And then the train dies. And it's this kind of classic frustration. Like, oh my gosh, not again. He's like, hey, I got somewhere to be. So he jumps out. I thought he was just going to huff it over to the hospital himself, but instead he's Wonder Man. He's cool. Look at him, he's cool. And he pulls the train the rest of the way. So I'm like, what a guy, he's cool. And so he gets to the hospital where all the Avengers are there, and they're all kind of they're all wanting to make sure that Vision's going to be okay. I think it's kind of funny that the Vision is at a normal hospital and not special Avengers hospital. He's got a pretty normal doctor just working away at the Vision. It's like this highly advanced synthezoid. And Wonder Man's like, oh man, that's Vision. And so I really like that he has a very distinct character. He's very quick, and but he feels like Vision is his brother. For those of you who don't know, that in the comics, not the movies, but in the comics, the Vision's brain patterns were modeled after Simon Williams, Wonder Man. So in a way, they're brothers. So really cool dynamic right there. Look at that. Look at that awesome picture. That is really cool. In fact, this kind of recapped the entire last issue. Really good stuff right there of them being visited by Robert Frank, helping Nucleo, fighting Isbissa, defeating him, and even Vision having to amputate himself. All this really cool shot of Vision looking all angry and in pain. So that was really cool. Just brushed over issue 2 like that. So you got all the Avengers here. I don't know what happened. They're just kind of comforting the Scarlet Witch. And then we get this really good writing of Vision in this dream sequence. This is in the Vision's mind where he encounters the Human Torch's body. Oh my gosh, this is where the Vision's origin gets very muddled and a little complicated. But his body didn't come from out of nowhere. His body was originally the body of the original Human Torch, not the Fantastic Four Human Torch, but the Golden Age Human Torch. So he sees the Human Torch just kind of floating there in his mind, and then he encounters Professor Horton, the doctor who made the Human Torch. And you got Wonder Man here going on the hospital bed because apparently his powers, which I don't understand, can help the Vision in their procedure to try and, I don't know what they're trying to do actually, regrow his arm maybe. But anyway, Wonder Man, they think Wonder Man can help, so Wonder Man is game. But then Professor Horton just gets swatted aside by Ultron, or in the comics, Ultron 5 at this point in the comics. And because it is Ultron who makes the Vision, obviously, and really good shot of him right here. In this trippy dream, the Vision reaches out and tries to touch the Human Torch's body. Then his arm, the same arm that in real life just melted and got amputated, starts melting too. And the Ultron's just kind of bad-mouthing him and calling him a weakling. And then in real life, Vision, because of what's happening in his mind, he's experiencing excruciating pain again. And here we go. Scarlet Witch is now alone. I was like, what happened to the rest of the Avengers? And you clearly see a bad guy, a supervillain, through the window. Then in the dream, the Human Torch's body is no longer on fire. And the Ultron, this is where I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this. When Ultron didn't really have a torso, his torso is replaced by like this giant motor, basically. And a really cheesy look. You know, wonder why that didn't catch on. Sorry. But he grabs Vision and the Human Torch. He pretty much commands Vision to turn intangible. He's compelled to listen for some reason. And then he just kind of pushes them together and makes one person. It's all very metaphorical about how the Vision came to be. And very trippy. Ultron just kind of lasers his head off. He's going to stuff in a mind. He's like, hey, I got a brain. He's going to put in his evil brain in Vision. But then, and then here in the real life plane, supervillain Grim Reaper just comes up and uses a chloroform rag to knock out the Scarlet Witch. So I thought two things. I was like, what happened to the other Avengers? Like, they didn't even come up with a reason why they're just conveniently gone. Because if they were still in this room, Grim Reaper would be screwed. All those Avengers would have mopped the floor with him. And also, the other thing, I was like, Scarlet Witch, superhero Scarlet Witch just got taken up by a chloroform rag. It's also funny that Grim Reaper is using a chloroform rag. He's one of the most ridiculously... he's one of the most ridiculous out there kind of supervillains. He's got a scythe for a hand. He just chloroform ragged the Scarlet Witch. This is kind of wacky. But anyway, back in Vision's dream, we got Wonder Man. Wonder Man in his original costume when he first debuted, kind of as a villain, but then turned good guy in the end. He had this kind of cheesy green costume. He punches Ultron aside before he could stuff his evil brain in Vision. And he's just kind of being all cool. He's like, hey, need a brain? And he's got a brain. He's like, here, take mine. He says, here, have mine. Won't be needing it for a little while because I'll be dead. And I was like, whoa. And then Ultron blasts him aside. Vision's like, no. And he catches his body and it just turns into ash and kind of fades away. So Vision's all mad. He calls Ultron a murderer. That was really trippy stuff. Really good stuff. I was like, wow. And Grim Reaper, he's pretty much just here. Grim Reaper is actually Wonder Man's real-life blood brother. And he's a supervillain. And I think he's just pissed that Wonder Man, he did die when he was in his cheesy green costume days. And when he came back as a hero, as current-day Wonder Man with the red jacket, he doesn't consider that his brother anymore. I think he feels very betrayed. So he pretty much doesn't consider him his brother. So he wants to kill Wonder Man and the Vision for kind of being modeled after his brother's brain patterns. So he's just showing up here on a revenge mission. Comes over here, tries to kill them in their sleep, and starts blasting them away with his scythe, slices through the computers and that sort of stuff. And so Vision is kind of put in a position where he's got to fight in real life and in his dream. He's still fighting Ultron and throwing down pretty good. But then he notices that Wonder Man's ashen body then turns into current year Wonder Man. He's like, hi, brother, I'm back. Glad to see me. Just him being himself. Really cool. Then in real life, Wonder Man wakes up. So this is all happening kind of in the dream and in reality. Barely dodges a fatal blow from Grim Reaper's scythe. And he blasts him away anyway with it. I really like that the Grim Reaper has like a laser blaster on the end of his scythe hand. Really cheesy and cool. And so then right here, this part it was a little hard for me to follow. Vision just turns his hand intangible and does his thing. It's how he normally dispatches people when he doesn't want to kill them. And I think it just kind of freaked out the Grim Reaper. He was like, no. He sees all these hands coming toward him. The Vision rushes to make sure that Wonder Man's okay. And Wonder Man sees that Grim Reaper's coming back. He's coming up behind the Vision with his scythe drawn out. Really cool sequence right here where then in the dream, he's about to get taken out by Ultron. In real life, he's about to get taken out by Grim Reaper. In both, he's just kind of tending to Wonder Man. And he says in the dream, you've got to wake up, Viz. There's danger. And so then in both, he turns around and just laser blasts Ultron and in real life, the Grim Reaper. and then they work together in his dream to really, clean Ultron's clock and blast him away, and that's it. So really good stuff. Scarlet Witch, if you're a big old Scarlet Witch fan, this wasn't her issue to shine. She was unconscious for the whole fight scene, but if you're a Vision fan, this was a must-have. That was really cool, that ordeal that he just went through. This bit of dialogue was really on the nose right here. She comes into the room through the hole that got blasted in, and she goes, "Merciful heaven, there's a hole blasted in the wall." This is like really, really on the nose. Like, oh, the operating room is in shambles. Vision and Wonder Man, we're in there. Vision, my husband, my love. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's funny. Wish my wife said that to me every time she entered a room, minus the Vision part. But then he's got his thought bubbles going here. She comes to me, an angel in scarlet, and I know I am awake, for no dream could be so divine. Yet it is good to be awake, good to be alive, good to love and be loved, as a man loves and is loved by his wife and his brother. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was really good. So this was the definite Vision issue about brotherhood and the bonds of brotherhood, and really good stuff. I loved it. I thought that was really cool. And yeah, not much more I can say about that one. Awesome cover too. I really love the facial expressions actually on this cover of Scarlet Witch, just looking just desperate and worried, and the Vision looking just in despair and helpless. So really cool cover there. All right, now for this one, issue 4, finale issue. All Marvel miniseries these days, they're always 5 issues. I don't know what their thing is, even if there's not 5 issues worth of story. And sometimes I'll read one that they really stretch out to 5 issues. I'm like, man, that could have just been like 1 or 2. They kept it at 4, but every issue felt pretty stuffed. Well, maybe not the first one, but was still essential to this overarching story. So here's the Revelations issue, actually titled "Please Allow Me to Introduce Myself." So this issue's really good. I'm so glad this was the best one. So it opens at Wundagore Mountain, which is a weird, confusing place unless you know a lot about Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch history. But pretty much it opens with this traveler dressed in white crossing through the snowstorm into this cabin. We don't know who he is at first, unless you've seen the cover. Opens the door and is met by Bova, who was the person that I don't know, kind of not raised, but kind of took care of Pietro and Wanda as they were really small children before giving them to the gypsies that raised them. And so he opens the door and goes, "I come as a humble supplicant seeking shelter from the storm." And then he goes, "Spawn of the atom," or I should speak. When I read Magneto's dialogue, I hear the voice actor that played him in the X-Men 90s show. "Spawn of the atom, what manner of creature are you?" Really, really deep, cool voice. She goes, "I'm Bova, midwife of Wundagore, a new woman evolved from a cow by the Lord High Evolutionary, and I bid you enter, for caring after wayward travelers is both my duty and my pleasure." Such a nice lady. So we got this guy right over here. That's Modred, she explains. I get he must have appeared earlier, but tells him he's just kind of acting like a man-child right now. He's been driven mad, so she's just kind of taking care of him. He was probably a villain that was some threat in some other comic some time ago, but he's just kind of there. And then she goes on explaining. He's asking questions about a woman named Magda, and Magda is the mother of Pietro and Wanda. And she recalls that she just kind of starts giving up info to this stranger. And yeah, Magda fled her husband that had a intense power, and it frightened her, so she fled and gave birth to her children on Wundagore Mountain. And the traveler starts kind of sulking. He's like, "Yes, I suppose the children, bereft of their mother, died soon after." And then Bova says, "Died? Mercy's sake, no. I nursed them, and they grew into 2 healthy, wondrous children." And so that news shocks him, and he gets up. He's like, "What? They survived?" And then he starts ordering Bova to tell him where they are and who they are, which I thought was out of left field because she was already telling him everything. He starts overreacting, but he's really passionate about the news that he just heard. I really like this shot of her eyeball, remembering Magda saying, "Please keep my children from their father." And so I think she's pretty much piecing things together. Really great shot right here. I love this picture. I love this picture because it reminds me how much I love old comics. The drawings, the illustrations, that's what counts. Everything in this panel is drawn. All these pots and pans, Magneto's just waving his hands around, tearing this cabin apart. Everything's flying around. Got these scissors, the oil lamp, all this stuff. Everything is drawn. All that is drawn. All the grain on the wood floor that they're standing on. So much of this stuff would just be 3D rendered now because artists today, they just want to draw the characters. They don't want to draw the objects and stuff. All this is drawn. Good job, Rick Leonardi. This is definitely one of the coolest shots in this comic. And so she pieces it together that he is the father of these children, and he demands to know their names, grabs her by the mouth, but then he puts his hand on her head. This was so weird to me. He says, by controlling the iron content of your blood, I control your mind as well. You have no choice but to speak the truth. I was like, dang, Magneto can do that? I was like, wow, that's so OP. He can make people do whatever he wants. If he really can control their mind. I've never seen him do that before. That was crazy. So she's compelled to say Wanda and Pietro. He has a total kind of Jack Kirby moment of drawing wise of him just being like, of course, his arms going up in the air. He just blasted the cabin to bits because of course that's Magneto, and he knows who Wanda and Pietro are. So he flies away and he says, "Fare thee well." I'm just like, dude, you just ripped her cabin apart. She like told you everything. That was really weird. She freaks out. It's like, oh my gosh, Madrid, if there's any bit of you left in there, use your magic and cast a warning spell and send it to Wanda and Pietro to warn them. And so it works. He listens and sends this warning spell, goes all the way around the planet, and then we go to the moon. Over here, Scarlet Witch arrives in the Quinjet. Pietro, at this time in the comics, since he just married Crystal, he's hanging out with the Inhumans lately. And over here, Pietro greets them, they hug, and then Vision reveals that he just amputated his arm. That's why they're here. The human doctors, because of the Vision's unique physiology being a synthezoid, there's nothing they can do. They want Vision to have an arm again, so hopefully the doctors on Adelan, on the moon, can help repair the damage. Oh my gosh, I love this ad right here too. Usually I see these old ads of Spider-Man selling Hostess products like Twinkies and stuff, but in this he's selling that old toy, the snake puzzle. These one-page little stories of him foiling a crime using the product that he's selling. Really cheesy. I love it. Love that stuff. So anyway, very, very quickly and kind of not explained, they very easily give him his arm back, and Karnak does a little karate chop to test it out, and then they're walking along, and Scarlet Witch can't wait to meet her new niece, since Pietro and Crystal just had their baby Luna. And so I really like this part right here. Scarlet Witch meets up with her sister-in-law Crystal, starts cradling the baby, and says, Crystal says, like the world where she's born, from which she took her name, because Scarlet Witch said she's beautiful. Then the Vision says, Crystal, may these android arms of mine cradle your little Luna. And then here the narration goes, there is a moment of silence, of sudden tension. Though a mutant himself, Pietro once born an all-abiding hatred for his sister's android love. So yeah, obviously we all know that Quicksilver's a bit of a hothead. He's a bit of a dick, at least he used to be. And but then, turn the page, get this, but that hatred eased as Pietro was made to see the roots of his prejudice. And he goes, hold my daughter and love her well, brother-in-law. She is truly blessed to have such an uncle. For such moments, there are no words. I agree. That was really good. Very touching. It's hard not to get emotional reading that kind of stuff. This is definitely a series uh, geared toward family and the bonds that tie us together for better or for worse. And this is a family of very strange and superheroic people that are going to treat it for better. And that was just a really great moment that I loved a lot. And so then get back to the plot where the stranger, who is also kind of vaguely explained, enshrouded in an energy corona that has enabled him to traverse vast distances of airless space. I'm like, wow, Magneto can do that? And so he just gets over here. For some reason, that power also enables him to just waltz on by the Inhumans undetected. They can't see or sense him. I'm like, wow, Magneto can do that. He's doing all this amazing stuff. He just snuck past all the Inhumans' defenses. Then he just gives himself up. He just says, now let this edifice and all herein be sealed away from those without. And so he casts away whatever was keeping him undetected and puts up some sort of invisible barrier. I'm guessing it's magnetic. They can't penetrate it. They can penetrate it, actually. They entertain the idea for about a second. They know Black Bolt could blast through it with his superpowered voice. But then they're like, well, that'll actually destroy Adelan after we just rebuilt it. So he can't do that. He's too powerful for his own good. And then here we go. Villain shot. Really cool stuff right here. Where first we get Pietro recognizing the villain's voice. He says, that voice, though years have passed since I last heard it, never would I forget that voice. And then here we get the cool hero, or not hero shot, the villain shot. And so the disguise is cast aside, that Magneto, master of magnetism, might stand revealed. And really cool stuff. And so instantly they're like, oh my gosh, Magneto, he's a bad guy. Magneto, our enemy. And she goes, oh, not here, not now, really on the nose, Bill Mantlo dialogue, Quicksilver being the hothead. Really distracting to me when I read Quicksilver or the Flash, super speed characters who in mid-power usage, so he's traveling at super speed, has all this dialogue. But he says, villain, any debt my sister and I owed you was long since paid. Since then we have been sworn foes. So obviously everyone knows that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch first appearing in X-Men issue 4 back in the early 60s, back when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were doing the X-Men. And when Magneto formed his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were on that team. But since then, they redeemed themselves and joined the Avengers. And now they just throw down. Everyone throws down with Magneto. And so I really like this stuff right here where Quicksilver charges at Magneto. And Magneto puts up... he tries to protect himself with a bunch of, I think, metal, just kind of scraps. And then Scarlet Witch, in her thought bubble, actually expresses some fear. She says, I always feared Magneto, his power, and the strange hold he has over Pietro and me. And so then she uses her hex powers, knowing that she can't stop Quicksilver. He's moving too fast, but she can turn all the metal that Magneto just put up in front of him into plants so that it doesn't hurt Pietro. He just rushes right through it. He's being drawn very thin by Rick Leonardi in here, and it's actually acknowledged here in this bit right here that says, though slighter in build than the Master of Magnetism, that speed enables him to strike with enormous force. So he just tackles Magneto right into the wall. And then Magneto has a little exchange with the Vision. He says, I warred against Homo sapiens because I felt them inherently inferior to mutant kind. But if mankind was inferior, what does then that make you? Vision replies, I am no less a man for my synthetic flesh. Magneto says, and the Scarlet Witch has chosen to call you husband, thus I will go easy with you, merely encasing you in the magnetized metal of the floor. So Vision, he has this really cheesy bit right here. Scarlet Witch cries, Vision, and Vision says, fear not, wife. Magneto has apparently forgotten that I am in truth a vision. And he alters his intangibility and just goes through the metal. I thought, I've never seen him do that, where he actually refers to himself in that way. That was cheesy but cool. So then Vision did think it was weird that Scarlet Witch making Vision her husband is what compels Magneto to go easy on him. So he turns his hand intangible, sticks it in Magneto. That just really pisses him off. He says, "Curse your logic and your ability to cause me pain, android." And so then he just kind of swats him aside, I believe. Kind of off-screen, Crystal and Scarlet Witch starting to look worried. And so then the Scarlet Witch and Crystal combine their powers and just start blasting him. I'm guessing Scarlet Witch is just using her hex bolt magic, and Crystal is using probably a fire blast. You got this one panel of Magneto going, "I am beset by women." I don't know why that made me laugh. I'm like, yeah, you can say that again, Magneto. And so then, as Quicksilver realizes that he's already starting to get back up, he rushes over and grabs a friggin' flagpole, and he chucks it at super speed at Magneto, and it actually pierces him right in the shoulder, and causes him pain. He goes, "You hurt me, boy." So he uses his magnetic powers to pull the pole out of him. Quicksilver says, "Would that my aim had been truer, Magneto, and that staff had penetrated your evil heart." He replies, "You lie, like all your ilk, you are averse to ever taking a life." So that's good stuff. It's like this kind of dialogue I don't read nowadays, like this kind of exchange, but I really just like the way they talk too. Bill Mantlo really knows these characters' voices. Then he uses the flagpole he just chucked at him to throw it back at Quicksilver. He just kind of hits him with it. Probably breaks his arm or his rib or something like that. Then Baby Luna starts crying, and then in classic form, Crystal just kind of goes like, stop it, "You're making the baby cry." And they're all like, "Okay, whoa, baby's crying, you woke the baby, oh no." And that's enough for Magneto to even go like, okay, that's enough fighting. He takes off his helmet in a good gesture of showing that he doesn't want to fight anymore. And they're all kind of like, what? And he approaches, he kind of doesn't really take Luna out of Crystal's arm, but they very, with ease, give it up to him. I thought that was a little weird. It's like, you were just fighting him. You were just proclaiming how much of a supervillain he was. But anyway, he says that he doesn't want any harm to come to Luna, and that he didn't come here to fight. And then he refers to Luna as his granddaughter. And then kind of funny right here, Pietro, Quicksilver, and Wanda all go, "What? What? What?" And then the Vision goes, "Could it be?" And then right here in this panel, Quicksilver says, "No, it couldn't be. This is a lie." And Scarlet Witch says, "And yet, have you never noticed, Pietro, how like yourself Magneto looks? Especially in this shot right here, really cranked up the villainy. Rick Leonardi, like, that is a super villain face right there. You know, he like looks very evil." And right, I really love this image right here of Magneto then telling Scarlet Witch how much like Magda that she looks, and that really that reaches her. And I really like this shot, especially with Magneto's helmet on the ground and Magneto holding his granddaughter in his hand. Got this really cool image right here of him pretty much just going over his origin, which we all know, but I really love Magneto's origin. He recounts that you know, he's the way that he is because he's from a time from the Holocaust in World War II. He's from a time where both man and mutant were persecuted for being different, but unlike the other victims, he possessed a power to fight back. And that's the power that frightened Magda and drove her to go away from him. And so Magneto, in this time period, he's not really so much a supervillain, but I just really love that origin. Very, very compelling stuff. And then we get here that his dialogue right here. "But of late I've been reassessing my values, and I have come to the conclusion that my past must not rule my present. And there are good and bad mutants. There are good and bad humans. I blamed the former for the latter's cruelty. I had already begun to temper my hatred for Homo sapiens when I learned that my mutant son had sired a normal human child, and that I was now tied by blood to the human race. Still, I do not ask acceptance of mankind at large. I only ask it, Wanda and Pietro, of you." And then she just wonders, if you're really our father, what in heaven's name do we all do now? And it ends right there. The series just ends right there. And a little bit here says, "Someday the children of man of the man called Magneto will find the answer to that question, but today they will be content with the answers they already have. Get this really good shot of all of them standing there, especially with Scarlet Witch shedding tears over this revelation. Very, very powerful stuff, and it's just good stuff. You don't read stuff, these classics like this anymore. So that is my review of Vision and the Scarlet Witch, issues 1 through 3. Not to be confused with, I think, the 12-issue series that came out 2 years later, written by Steve Englehart. I have 2 issues of that series. Wasn't a fan of it. I just don't. I'm not a huge Steve Englehart fan. Not really into him. He's a legend, but I think Bill Mantlo did a far better job writing Vision and the Scarlet Witch. And this was really good stuff. The first issue was the weakest, but then it started getting better and better. Issue 4 was absolutely the best. And definitely a series about family. In this first issue, them tackling a problem as a newlywed married couple. In the second issue, you got to explore kind of fatherhood and have them kind of, and all these issues really, they tackle things together. Then with this, the issue of brotherhood, and then revisiting true fatherhood again. Lots of the relationship between in-laws and what that means. But then in every single issue, they tackle all these crazy problems together as a married couple that are in love and committed. And you never forget that, and this series doesn't let you forget that. Really good stuff. Highly recommend it if you can go find it. I'm sure if you could find these in the vintage comic section at your local comic shops, if they're still there, the prices might be a little high now that the WandaVision show came out and probably cranked up interest a little bit. But this is really good stuff. Highly recommend it. Can't go wrong with the classics. Thank you for watching this video. You have a good day. I'll see you next time.